Good morning. We'll call to order the Kennedale City Council special meeting. Today is September 7th, 2023 at 11 a.m. We are in City Hall chambers located at 405 Municipal Drive. Members of the public may join in person or access a live feed at www.cityofkennedale.com/videos. The virtual option, however, does not allow for public comment. I don't see Mrs. Durango, would you be addressing the council today? Okay, so we don't have anyone here to address the council, so we'll move to roll call.
Brad Horton,
Here.
Kenneth Michaels, Bryant Griffith,
Here.
Jeff Navarez.
Here.
Mayor Joplin, we have a quorum.
Thank you for that. We're going to open with our invocation and pledges this morning. Councilman Horton will lead us in invocation, Councilman Michaels in the pledges. If you'd please stand. Thank you both. We're going to move straight into the reason why we're here. We're going to move into our work session. We have two items. The first one is updates to the proposed 24 budget. And we have our finance director, Mr. Horton, with us.
Morning, Madam Mayor and Council. I'll
Morning.
start by going over the staff report, the updates that were made on the staff report, and then I'll be here for any questions or clarifications after the words. In the general fund, I'm just going to go top to bottom instead of jumping around, just help with hopefully with lack of confusion. But in the finance department, in three departments, we had salaries that were counted twice. There was a temporary and part-time account for salaries, and they were also being counted in the salaries as well. So we pulled those out. In the finance department, we had to remove 39,923 out of the wages that were double counted. In a corresponding move, since transfers from the EDC to the general fund are based on department expenditures, that transfer was reduced from the EDC fund. So that's on the common cost sheet that's in the front of the budget book. You'll see a reduction in the finance department's 15%. The next three departments were a clarification. So this wasn't a total expenditure change. This was just a reclassification of moving what was in office equipment into software. So our total expenditures for those departments just moved. It didn't move at all. We had to be more exact with what we were expecting to spend. That's community development, police and fire. That was a $10,000 move, $4,000 and $8,000 respectively. The next bullet point is the library. Same with finance. We had to move temporary part-time wages. That was $42,000. In communications, we reduced our software predicted expenditure or budget expenditure, I apologize, by $5,000 because that specific item, Civic Plus, was also being budgeted in the city secretary's budget. So that was showing up twice. In non-departmental, a corresponding outgoing transfer of $68,958 was initiated to the Street Improvement Fund. This will cover $32,000 is for a pavement management system in our street fund, and the remaining $36,958 has been moved to street maintenance to give us a new street maintenance budget of $176,958. I did mention the transfer from the EDC fund when I discussed finance. Those are bullet points on here. The other change was that we did have salaries in the street improvement fund that were double counted as well. So we made an adjustment to our wages, a reduction of 23,740. Those are all the updates that are in the new version of the book.
Perfect. I'll open it up for questions. I'll start with Councilman Horton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Horton, thank you for all your hard work. I've been as misfortunate as to have to prepare many of these in my day. I know it's not the funnest thing in the world, even though it's, it's your job, but several questions here. Number one, with the general funds. The salaries were corrected to remove temporary part-time wages of 39,923. So is that in the finance fund, or is that, because I don't see a change in the actual budget. I see, if you look at budget 7 finance.
The salaries line was reduced by the 39,000.
36, and let me, bear with me. Okay, I got it.
Page 36.
So, okay, so it went from 276,510 to 236,587, just to make sure I understand you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, it was a miscalculation on my part. I didn't pull the part-time wages out when I was
Understood.
putting this in.
so they were put in the, I see it.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Next with the library, just looking at that, can you, I'm just trying to add up the math for myself in my head here. So we reduced the total personnel from, it's now 382,662, correct? Or proposed 382,662.
Yes, sir.
Bear with me while I try and get it. All right, so it was 424,662, and it's now 382,662.
Yes, the total personnel.
And that's the reduction of the 42,000. Okay, so and just I'm trying to walk through this in my head for my own understanding here. So last year's or fiscal year 23's actuals were 265,746. Or are two. So basically we had a change from one part-time to one full-time, correct? Or that's proposed for 24.
That's the additional positions proposed.
All right. And so that would be rough, and I'm trying to do this on the fly here, but that'd be roughly an increase of 20,000, right?
52
52,
actually.
52,000. All right. And so then across the board, 3% pay increase. And then the library communications clerk shared with the EDC.
Mhm.
Is that accounted for in here as well?
It's not accounted for in the libraries on this specific page. It's accounted for on the general fund revenue in the transfer from the EDC to the general fund itself.
Okay.
So I do understand the point of confusion on this, and that we're not showing the revenue in the library and we're not reducing that expenditure in the library, but it does come through as a common cost when the EDC shifts funds over. Same as like finance, all the finance expenditures. When I take that total, the EDC covers 15% of that. So I'm not reducing for Department 7, I'm not reducing the finance department's budget by 15%. It's just shown as revenue or a transfer in, not revenue, excuse me, a transfer in from the EDC as a whole.
Okay.
And those numbers are, the common cost analysis is on page 33. So if you go to the general fund tab, it's the page just before that.
All right. And
Here,
that's here. I've
if
still got
you can look at it on your binder that's
Okay.
old. You can conceptually, you can look at it, just understand that the finance number has been reduced due to the
Okay.
double counting of salary
So,
or part-time wages.
so we've got basically 50,000 for the change from part-time to full-time. We've got roughly 7,000 for the 3% raises across the board. Then the library communications clerk, that's in a different budget. And then the director's salary increase is roughly 15,000? So when I'm adding this up from the 23 budget to the proposed 24 budget, I'm getting somewhere in the ballpark of like 350 to 360,000. I don't know if my math is off.
Are you
or-
considering retirement and the increase in payroll tax?
Yeah, I mean, and that would, that would actually make it. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, maybe we can have this offline, and I'm sorry, I just kind of
No.
stumbled across that, but. And listen, guys, I tell this to my students when I teach, and I tell them I'm terrible at math and they laugh at me. And then when I start doing accounting problems across the board, they're like, you really are terrible. So, but that may be a mistake on my end, and we can.
Give me just a minute. I'm going to my spreadsheet, salary spreadsheet.
Mr. Horton, maybe you can explain to the rest of us what your concern is, I guess, so I can follow you
Sure.
down the rabbit hole.
So long story short, without me repeating every step, basically the 23 budget was 257,965 for library personnel. And with the proposed increases and salary increases, moving from full-time to part-time to full-time, I'm coming up with like 350 to 360 instead of the 382 number. And just wanting to make sure. Sure. Sorry, I know that was probably all over the place.
And we're on page 63.
And when I look at my spreadsheet on calculations, it looks that it appears to me that what's presented for the 24 proposal it's in line with what I'm expecting based on changes in staffing. Now, what's our difference between the two of us?
I'm
160, are you looking at the actual or the budget?
I just went with the actual based on the
Yeah,
actual for
the
23
actual
versus proposed
265.
24. I mean,
Yeah,
we're probably,
it's like 117,000.
I've been able to back it into about 20,000 basically. From his number to where mine.
So there's only a difference of 20, and that actually could be like retirement, and because that increases a lot, the retirement when the,
I mean, it
Salaries
may
increase.
be, okay, and sure, okay, and maybe I don't want to, part-time, they still get retirement.
Yeah, I believe I believe the differences that we're discussing really is the increase in retirement, all the corresponding increases to an increase in
Retirement.
wage. So we have TMRS and then the Social Security and the Medicare.
And the part-time still get,
We still have, yes, part-time gets retirement if they're going to work over 1,000 hours a year.
okay,
And the payroll taxes, we're stuck with those. And also with the new position, for budget purposes, I selected the most expensive health plan since we don't know. So to be conservative in that spirit, I pegged that new position to take the most expensive medical, dental, vision across the board. So we'd make sure that was covered. So
okay.
in my mind, that's where the gap is. If you disagree, we I'm happy to go further.
We can, I won't take everybody's time up. Maybe we can touch base a little later, whatever. I mean, that's not, I mean, 15, 20 grand. I mean, that's not like 100 grand, I mean, it's material, but it's not,
Also want to just make sure that we have one director, two full-time clerks and two part-time. So it's not a part-time going to a full-time. It's still two part-time employees.
okay.
So for a total of 5, which will include the new communications side of it.
Which is coming from another budget. Okay.
Yeah, another part of the source, yes. Could that be it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Okay,
Think maybe, I'll get with you guys.
okay. But your number is roughly around the 20,000 mark.
I'm getting like
Seeing the difference.
355 to 360 instead of or 355 to 365 instead of 385.
Okay.
Sir. Yes, ma'am. So if we can flip to the fire department,
You have a page number for us?
I did. Bear with me.
57,
87?
57. ma'am.
57, thank you.
Motor vehicles. That's the third account from the bottom. Account 5861. I think last year around Christmas time, maybe it's Thanksgiving time, somewhere in there, I believe we allocated 150 grand for a brush truck, Chief Brown, is that correct? So I know you weren't here yet.
Could be.
Yeah, so we're getting that in fiscal year 24 now, and it's 168,862. That's inflation. And I get it's that the price has gone up, but should not that be 18,000 instead of 168,000? Because if we already allocated the funds in fiscal year 23, they would in theory be there.
Since we didn't spend them, because there's budget and there's reality, since we didn't spend them, we still have to put them in the budget because the budget wipes itself clean and then it restarts on 10/1. So just having funds budgeted, the budget itself won't carry over. So we have to renew that here in the budget so we can have that expenditure in 24.
So, but it would go to the fund balance, right?
We didn't spend it.
Right.
So that,
So it
yes,
would just
the
be-
fund, if you think of the bank account piece of that,
It's
the
still
real
there.
life piece has that 150,000 in it. But I have to put it like renew it in the budget to keep our budget in line year over year. Otherwise, we'd be over budget by 168,862 and 24 when we spent the funds if it wasn't in the budget.
You'll see those funds in the reserves is actually where you see what he's talking about.
Okay.
It's still budgeted.
That's what I wanted to make sure that it was like.
Yeah.
Still, okay.
Yeah, it's still there, but the actual numbers, you're gonna actually see the numbers. Cause we'll go from 76 to actually to 100, but was 25% to 33% on our reserves. And that's where those funds is that correct?
Yeah, I can either go into more detail now or later on in the meeting, it's planned to go over financials, the real and then we
I've
can
got a
discuss it.
meeting. I gotta be at
Yeah.
1 today. Maybe we can, I'll move on just in the sake of everybody's time. I've got,
So what I'm presenting later through July, and then I have a
Okay.
draft for August, that's real money coming in and out versus budgeted money looking for it in the future.
okay,
So it's two different, it's like accrual versus cash, if you want to look at it that way.
okay,
I'll be presenting the cash later, but this is more accrual basis.
okay. And one final question here with the EDC, that would be page 117, I believe.
I'm ready.
You there?
Yes,
Everybody
sir.
there? It wants to be there. So if you look down at the bottom, the beginning fund balance on this most recent is $2,133,398. The last copy of the budget, it was $3,614,819.
Yeah, the transfers, complete error on my part. If you look one block above, you see other financing sources and uses. I had a formula error that was adding that number instead of subtracting it.
So there was no prior period adjustment then. It was just,
There was a prior period adjustment. It's just built into the FY 22 actual.
built into the fiscal year 22 actual.
The 2,005,520. I'm gonna find an external reference for you. in
Okay,
Just
thanks.
a second. If you jump ahead in your packet to the July financials, the very last page of that is page 8 of 8 of the financials. If you printed them in color, it's like a salmon
Yep,
color along the
Got it.
top. Okay, the first Fund 15 is what we're talking about. So ignore the very bottom, Fund 95, that doesn't apply. You can see the ending fund balance at the end of FY 22, the actual for the year is 2,005,520. Now, if you go back to your budget book, to page 117, the ending fund balance for the FY 22 actual is $2,005,520.
$2 million. Okay.
So
I see
that really was the discovery of the error was done when I was reconciling the July numbers and the fund balances in July to the budget book.
Okay. All right. I got that now.
Okay.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Good questions.
I don't have no
Councilman Mon-
questions.
No questions?
No question.
Councilman Griffith?
I just had one quick question, and I think Daryl might be able to speak to this, but I wanted to know a little bit more about the reserve funds. So when we do our budget and let's say we come into some grant money or other funding sources, when we don't spend what we budgeted for things, does that funding automatically go to the reserve?
John, do you want to answer? Or you want me to go ahead?
I can start and
Either one, that's.
if I don't get it done, feel free
Go
to
for it.
stop me. The idea being the reserve fund, we're saying 25%. So that's about 92 days. So if you look at, to go back to the July financials, at the very bottom, it says days of fund balance. So when we talk about reserve, we're saying we want to have 92 days, that's 25% of the year, but 92 days of funds available to spend in case of X disaster. I'll say disaster, I'm confident in that. But the idea being that we can still operate if we have nothing coming in. If everything goes downhill, we can still operate for 3 months. Once the funds that we do not spend, so this year we're projected to have, I hate to say bonus, but we're projected to have a positive effect on our fund balance at the end of the year versus the balance. The budget was set up to have 0 net change in fund balance. We're predicted to have a positive. So we'll increase our reserves, which will get us, previously they weren't really in line with our policy, or at least the desire. 25% is the desire. And that's written, I mean, that's written down. That's an objective that we're supposed to meet. We weren't doing that before. So the idea being we actually need to end this year on a positive note with a positive change in fund balance so we can get back in line with what the city has directed us to do.
And where are we currently at?
If by current you mean on August
In the reserve.
31st with my projections, I'm showing 124 days or about 33% right now. Now that's a bit, now when I say that, I want to put a caveat. Our revenue doesn't come in the same every month. So that number is going to fluctuate quite a bit. So we're saying, like I'm saying 33%, but I can assure you in September, our expenditures will exceed our revenue. It's just the way it works. The bulk of our revenue hits in January and February, so that number fluctuates a little bit, but we're still going to be over the 25% or 92 days at the end of September.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Some of that funding is where we come in, talking about the fire truck. So you'll see that expenditure coming out of this, and that funding that we have for this current budget is following through there. And roughly, we're projecting probably around 600,000 and added to the reserves, and we'll have a discussion here shortly about that.
Councilman Navarez?
I have no questions, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Do we want to go ahead and just go right into the financials at this point?
Whatever
Might as
whatever
well.
you'd like to do, Madam Mayor.
Let's do that. Yeah,
Okay.
we're on finance. Let's stay there.
Let me reorganize. I will start with July. 83, the end of July is about 83% through the year. We can see on our revenue in the general fund, our total, we're at 87%, and our expenditures were at 71%. Our revenue is slightly behind expectation compared to last year, but our expenditures are 9% behind. So we're still tracking in a very healthy manner in the general fund. Also, just want to point out that our property tax revenue is 105% to budget. So we've done very well there. Madam Mayor, we had a discussion regarding the sales tax at the last time we met. I won't get ahead to August, but I still feel that we're tracking to potentially hit that target, but I haven't reached the comfort level that we talked about in looking at our next year's budget and having an increase in our sales tax revenue. I would be a lot more confident in that if I could say we're really going to hit this year's number or exceed this year's number. I'm just not there yet. But I'll touch on that a little bit more when we get into August. I just didn't want you to think I forgot our conversation.
I actually picked up on that. This is the first time where I've seen it flip, where the year-to-date was less than current.
We're still close, and there's
Yeah.
usually,
Well, I mean, it's close, but
Yeah.
but it's not
Mhm.
more.
Yes, ma'am. Our water sewer fund, I'll skip down to that. Our water sewer fund, we're still healthy. Our revenues are still exceeding pace. And our transfers and expenditures, we're still healthy there. We're about flat with what we were expecting with our budget. Our budget has 186 days of working capital. We're at 183 at the end of July. So I'm comfortable with our progress in the water sewer fund. Stormwater, which is right above that, stormwater is Fund 7. We're actually coming a little bit ahead of budget, our pace right now. Days of working capital, our budget was 1278 and we're at 1320. So we're still doing good with the stormwater. Do we have any questions on July? Or would you like me to move on to what I have for August as far as a draft?
Go ahead and move on.
Okay. I only have the general fund prepped for August. I can go into more details if you're interested, but it was a pretty quick turnaround to get the general fund, and we just don't have all the data yet from the other funds, other sources that provide us revenue information. We just don't have it, but I'll say I'm 90% confident in these numbers, and we're 92% complete through the year through August 31st. So when we look at our general fund revenues at that point, we are like right on pace, because it's not really 92% through the year. It's like 91.2, and we're 91% with our revenues. The one caveat to that is I did have to do an estimate for property taxes. The county hasn't given us what that distribution was for the month. But you can see with our sales tax, we're close. We're just not quite there yet. And the main reason I see on that is we haven't had that school supply month where people buy school supplies online and Kennedale gets to collect some of those sales taxes. I haven't seen that hit yet. I'm hoping we'll be able to see that soon. But when you go through the departments with that 92% number in mind, you can see that all but one of the departments they're behind pace. Behind in the positive sense. Not at the 92%. And of course, our transfers in and transfers out are right on point. But the days of fund balance, I'm looking at the end of August, with this being a draft, at 124 days of fund balance, again, with our target at 92 to hit the 25%. So I feel pretty good about the stewardship of the city's funds.
Excellent. Any questions? Any follow-up comments? No? Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
very
Appreciate the
much.
time.
I just have one question. Did we all get the draft? Am I missing that draft? Oh, it's in our mailbox. Okay. Okay. In the box, because I'm like, well, okay.
If I can make one more comment, the draft I was talking about for August is also in the box in the hallway. So if anyone was wondering where I got that from, that's where
Thanks
I
for that. I
slid it in there
around
about
thinking,
9 o'clock this morning.
I know, yeah, I looked over and saw, I'm like, well, he's got a draft. Oh, well, okay, there. Right? Might make us all think we've been looking for that page. Okay, so excellent.
I do
Oh.
have a couple of things to add
Yes,
to the
please
current
do.
August.
Okay,
And it'll refer back to the savings or the revenue that we currently have and the savings that we have had basically based off the some of the personnel savings is basically where we've generally have had that savings. With that, we have had a discussion the last couple of months, mainly last month or the last budget workshop of making a purchase of some of the equipment that was asked for the 24 budget. Two of those were vehicles. One of them was for the police department. The other one was for community development, for code compliance, and obviously for community development to go out and have an actual vehicle. Currently, they have been borrowing a vehicle for public works. So we're needing to make that purchase. The other one also is from the police department, and that was a purchase of equipment for tasers and pepper ball gun equipment. The ones they currently have are, some of them are over 10 years old, and they're just not serviceable anymore. So that would be a purchase. And we're looking at roughly about $180,000 for this equipment total for all of it, which will come out of this current budget, but it wasn't budgeted, so that's the reason why I'm bringing it forward. And we'll utilize some of the savings to offset the 24 budget.
so is what we're looking at now minus this, we're already seeing the,
You have not seen that, so this is
Okay.
where we'll come in, where you're indicating we're seeing 133 days of reserve. We're already predicting that we're gonna have a drop in that.
okay,
With $180,000 roughly, we'll still be above the 25% savings or reserve. Yeah, we're not gonna dip under our standard.
Okay.
If I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
roughly, we're looking at about $600,000 in savings for this current budget. With us taking 180,000, so we're dropping about 400,000, which though whatever's left obviously is moving into the 24 budget in our reserves.
Yeah, Mr. Hull and I ran a scenario this morning based on us operating the final month of the fiscal year with no revenue. And we were still around a $500,000 gain, an increase in fund balance, even if we receive no revenue for September, which of course we're going to receive revenue. But we just wanted to look at, okay, what's our worst case? And could we still afford this equipment if we had no income? And ultimately, we would still be extremely healthy, even with a $200,000 equipment expenditure coming by the end of this month.
excellent. Any comments or questions? Okay, thank you so much. All right, we're going to try to get out of here by noon, right? Okay. So we're going to move on to our next discussion. regarding place one council seat vacancy.
I'm sorry, Mayor. One more question.
Sure.
With that said, I just want to get some recognition of approval to move forward with these purchases. Is there any, it's just a transfer of money is, I'm just looking for approval
Is
to make the purchase.
anyone have any objections?
No, is it over your allotted amount or are you just being a courtesy?
No, this is, obviously it's $176,000 purchase. And more than anything, I'm bringing it to you so you know that purchase is being made. Practically what I look at if, just like in June, we bring pretty much the whole enchilada for say to you guys. This is our full wish list. And some of these did not make it into the 24 budget. So that's the reason why we have a savings in this current budget. So we need to make sure if we, particularly like the vehicles and protection for our officers is a liability. So we need to make that purchase. But it was on the current budget. We just have not been able to make that purchase. And I just wanted to make sure I share that with you guys and make sure you understand the purchase. But it is within the budget.
So it's just a courtesy.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll move on to number two, discussion. I've already said it. So regarding place one, council seat vacancy, we'll go back to that. And currently the charter allows us to fill this with an appointment. We actually have three options and I'm just going to put them out there and we can go around, discuss it and see, because this is a work session. So we're basically just giving direction on this. The charter allows us to appoint, which we've done the last 2 or 3 times. Or we can go to a special election. We've already missed the November ballot. So if we did a special election, it would cost us around 25,000 for a special election. Or we can leave it vacant and it would go to May. And in May, that would be 4 seats would be up on the ballot for May.
I don't believe we would be able to do a November special election.
No,
I
not
think we're
November.
past that.
That's
Right.
correct. Yeah, November, we're past that. It would have to be a standalone that would cost us about 25,000. Yeah. So with that being said, I'll open it up for direction and I'll start with Councilman Navarro.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm okay with appointing the seat, but however, I did have a couple citizens call me and concerned about the perception of the appointment. And I promised them that I would bring up at least the discussion of an election. With my point of view is if we didn't make the November, which we didn't, I would hate to push it off to May and have a vacant seat that long. I think that perception's a lot worse than having a neutral party being appointed to the seat. And for me, $25,000 just for one person, let's say in January, which I think is 180 days. Actually, it wouldn't even be January because it would need time to run for that seat. So let's say we did in February, we won't have that many people turn out. It'll be probably our lowest numbers ever because it's a February election. There's nothing else on the ballot. So for me, because of just the uniqueness of the timing, I'm okay with appointment. I just wanted to bring up some of the citizens' concern. I promised them I would.
You're absolutely understandable. Councilman Griffith?
I'm in agreement on some of those concerns. I just want to just say that being that there's so many of us already here that are appointed, and then having us appoint an additional seat, I think kind of circumvents the elected voice. But I'm also not in favor of leaving a vacant seat for an extended period of time. However, I think it's important that we consider the idea of allowing this to be postponed until May, and allowing the people to actually cast a vote for that candidate.
Councilman Michaels?
Well, one of my main concerns is, I mean, I can see an appointment, but I can also see him wait till May to fill the position. One of the key things that we should need to be talking about is our charter, because we had a provision in there that was accidentally took out. And it told us what we needed to do. And now that it's no longer there, the only option that gives us is that the council can make appointments. So, it also states in our charter that we should be governed by 5 and 1. So I don't think we can sit there and put it off till May when we're supposed to be having 5 sitting council members and the mayor. So, I'm kind of open either way. One thing that I looked at is, the last election, you had one guy that was 2 votes away. You know, so I'm looking at 50% of the citizens or 49% of the citizens voted for him. And I don't know if that's something that we can look at and say, hey, you know, since you ran an election, you almost had it, and we just give that seat to him. I don't know. I'm open for options.
Councilman Horton.
I don't know that there's a good course of action here for anybody involved, to be honest with you. And I say, I mean, ideally, I think an election, and I say that as somebody who was appointed, and out of the council people here, we've only got 2 that have been elected. I mean, and I don't, I mean, just hearing what people have said over the past few months, we've had a lot of turnover. And, I mean, I personally don't feel right about appointing somebody, being appointed myself, and I mean, I know that we voted, but I mean, so I mean, I can understand the argument for appointing that, the charter does, what does it say? 5. I really don't know. I'm kind of torn on it, to be honest. And, I don't really have a good, let's do this, if that makes sense, course of action. So, maybe think about it some more, but I think in a perfect world, we would do an election, but again, we want to spend 25, 35 grand in taxpayers' funds to have it. And then, but if we did it in February, the seat would go for, so it would be a year and 3 months, or
You also have to consider that there's the possibility if you put it up, let's say, Chris did it again, he was the only one, we wouldn't have to do election, we would save money because he would automatically be done. So, which was an issue this last election. A lot of those seats were unopposed on both the ISD. And only 2 opposed on the trustee on the city. So that's a possibility, but that's the gamble, right? That's the roll of the dice on that one. How do you feel about Kenneth's idea, though? Is that a good compromise, I guess? Because technically he's right.
Yeah, I personally think that, not that I don't necessarily disagree. It's a great idea, but in any case, whatever decision we make, we have to walk it out in its completeness. So that would mean applications reviewed, interviews, and I would absolutely encourage that individual to apply.
Agree.
But whatever decision we make, it has to be in line with the law, policy, procedures, setting a precedence. The considerations we're deliberating on right now are, how do we feel about having a majority of us here now being appointing an additional seat? It's a little bit different when the majority has been elected by the people, and then you appoint by nature of how we conduct things. But I just wanted to make sure that we understand that whatever decision we make, we have to walk it out in its completeness. We can't come up with good ideas and circumvent the process.
I mean, I would think that if we do that, then I'd agree with Councilman Griffith that we need to probably open it up for interviews. And I that's not a shot against Mr. Evans. I mean, he got, but I think, people are going to not be happy regardless of what we do, right?
That's correct.
Then on the flip side, I guess the 50.1 or 50, whatever would, they're like, well, so I mean, I don't know.
If we did the appointment, I would want to open it up as well, because there was a
For
few people
interviews,
who missed
yeah.
the process the last time and had some complaints. So one of them moved, but the other one's still here. So I know he would like a chance to put his hat for a position if we did that route.
I also want to just add that right now, we're going through the bulk of the things that we need to work on. Am I not mistaken in that, right? The budget and other things. We've talked about some charter changes that'll probably come in May as well, possibly.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Point being, though I don't favor the idea of leaving the seat vacant, I think that given the time frame where we're at right now in the year and the items that we have to discuss and work on between now and May, I think it would be acceptable. It would be the only time that it would, I think, not hurt us to have the seat vacant and wait till May as well. It would be different if this happened when we're in the middle of working on our budget and other things that we haven't already come to pretty much a conclusion on, if that makes sense. So I'd like you guys to consider that as well.
I would say that, although I agree with you, I ran through a list of things, projects that we're working on right now, and it's still huge. It's a list of about 22 items, and one of the biggest things that we will ever do is update the comprehensive plan, and that's in front of us. And we do need someone involved. At this point, we're updating our UDC codes. We are looking at a committee for the Veterans Park. We're looking at a committee for the charter. We're looking at, so we have a lot of big items that are in front of us. Yes, the budget was it's always the biggest, and it takes several meetings to get through, especially for staff. But for us, actually, our work is just now beginning with the comprehensive plan and the EDC codes and the ordinances, all the ordinances that are being updated. We've got a noise ordinance, this ordinance, STR ordinance that we're, nailing down. And so the way I look at it, our work is just beginning. I wouldn't want to see, I agree, it's a very difficult situation. It's a no-win situation, absolutely. Whichever way we go, it's a no-win. Not a situation that, any of us could foresee. But if, based on what I'm hearing, if everyone is in agreement, it's not an easy decision either way we go. And if we do open it up, I would say let's wait until after our September 19th. Let's give staff through the budget season. Let's let them get through that. And then open it up, give it at least a 3-week, and have a special day set aside for interviewing and a decision, either the end of September or 1st of October timeframe.
Madam Mayor, can I also add that I think maybe we need to think about revisiting the charter?
Absolutely. Well, we need a charter committee there, and that's what I was saying. That's another committee. So there will be a charter committee that's on that list, is to update our charter. That needs to be addressed, along with some other things. Yeah, I agree with that.
I completely agree with that.
Also, am I hearing you correct in saying it sounds like we postpone the decision point for a few weeks? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm suggesting that we move in the direction of appointing, but open the application process up to give time, like a 3-week window of time for the applications to come in. And then for us to set aside an interview date, the end of September, 1st week of October timeframe.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Obviously, it looks like we're trying to do an appointment. If we do an appointment, can we not say you're appointed till May, and then you have to run an election for that seat?
I would argue, what's the point of doing that? If you're going to postpone it till May, you might as well run the election and let the people vote on it.
I don't think you can do that as well, because you point to the positions for fulfillment of that contract, which would be
Right.
the end of the term.
But the appointment itself is the seat, not the person.
You're right. And the seat
So,
is
the term.
needs to be filled to the term
Yeah.
Right.
that's closed.
Be the term.
Well, I mean.
That would be a
I'm
lawyer
just kicking
question, but
Ideas
that-
around. I mean,
yeah.
my whole deal is, it seems like the past 3 years, that's all we've been doing is appointing, and I was appointed myself, but
I don't disagree with it, but then there's a flip side. If not that, then what?
right,
Right, so, and
that's
that's-
the whole thing.
That's where we're at. If not that, then we either wait for May or we have a special election?
Well, we can't wait for May because our charter tells us that we
Okay,
have
so
to have
then,
5.
then it's either a point or a special election.
Yeah,
Right.
I
That's
think
where we're at.
we've come to a point where it's just one or the other.
Right.
Obviously, the intent is either, if we're gonna postpone it till May anyways, then we're talking election. If we want to move to a point, it's because we want to fill the seat now and, or in the next few weeks. So that's kind of just, I don't think any of us would agree to spending an extra 25,000. Was that correct, Mayor?
That's correct.
20, so I think that third option is kind of off the table. So now what we're talking about is, are we appointing to prevent a vacant seat for an extended period of time? Or are we pushing this to the citizens and allowing them to vote in May? I think that's kind of what we're looking at.
So it's either a point or we wait till May. That's where we're at.
Like the mayor said, it's a no-win scenario, no matter what we pick. So the idea of appointment is to fulfill the position with somebody that the council believes has the skill set to fill the position that the city needs. The election is for the voice of the citizens. So if the need is there, we should appoint and we should pick somebody, for example, that has been in development or real estate, who's on the P and Z or the BOA board. These are the tools, somebody with the tools that we need as a council for some of the items that the mayor just discussed, for example. So that's the idea about it. It's not supposed to be like political, for example. We're supposed to choose somebody who we think that it'll be the best tool for the city to use to fill that gap until the citizens can voice it again.
I don't want to rush anyone that's not ready, but I feel like if we're faced with two options and we've all agreed this is a challenging situation, and leadership often puts you in those places. So I think we're at a point now, 5 minutes till 12. I don't think there's much more deliberation we can have. We're just going to keep rehashing the same challenge points that we're faced with. So I think it might be time for us to.
Madam Mayor, can we poll everybody and just see where everybody's at? That way
Yeah.
we can move forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think at this point, everybody kind of knows. I mean, if you want to take some extra time, or certainly don't have to make this decision today. And you know, we could have some extra time on it, but if Councilman Horton?
You know, I would prefer an election, and, you know, Councilman Michaels raised the point, you know, there's been a lot, you know, and again, knowing that I have been appointed myself, but there has been a lot of that. And, you know, my main thing is I think the charter needs to be updated.
So you're saying special election?
Yeah, but I mean,
Well, you're saying that wait till May.
wait till May.
Okay, wait till May.
Going by what our charter says, I mean, we can't wait for May to fill the seat. So we're just gonna have to do, to me, I guess we'll have to do an appointment again. I mean, it's, what choice do we have? I mean, we're governed by one saying on section 3.01 that we should have, or 3.02 should have 5 members on council and the mayor. So we can't postpone it till May to fill the seat. I mean, we have critical stuff that's going to be coming up that we need to vote on.
Right.
I hate to do an appointment, but I'm still, I mean, it's all about the charter too. I mean, the charter would have gave us the answers if it wasn't removed. So I guess we're going to have to do another appointment.
Councilman Griffith?
I agree with Councilman Horton. I also agree with the things that Councilman Michaels brings up. I think sometimes letter of the law is not as black and white as we think. I agree with him that it directs us to maintain 5 seats. One of the things I'd like to consider when we move forward to work on the charter is putting in some more specifics on timelines. For example, there is a mechanism by which we can continue to operate how we are now. In the event of a tie, for example, the mayor would then cast a vote. And because we have that mechanism, I don't think we're trapped in a situation that we can't continue on. And I think that's the intent of the law, is that we can continue to move on. So based on that, I would agree with Councilman Horton that the best course of action would be to let it go to May.
Councilman Navarro?
I'm going to agree with Mr. Michaels on this. The whole reason why we have 5 and 1 is there's a balance there. For a supermajority, for example, it's harder to get 4 people to agree than it is 3 people, for example, for a supermajority. And I think that balance is necessary in a, you know, democratic republic. So I think it's necessary for us to fill the seat. I hate that it's an extension. I think like to point out that the two elected ones are the ones that are saying this, and two appointed ones are kind of up for election. I appreciate that as well. And I respect y'all's opinion on that too, but I think it's necessary that we at least fill the seat as fast as possible, and the only route for that is appointment for the fastest route.
All right, so I personally feel like the seat needs to be filled. And so with an appointment, you know, we know what that process is. We'd open it up for application. If I'm the tiebreaker, it seems, that's what I'm going by 2-2 here. So I would suggest that we have a 3-week window of time that we open it up for the application, and then an interview date. And we can look at that at a later time. We don't have to make that decision today because today is just about direction. But I would like for the budget at least to be, for it to be after our council meeting on the 19th, maybe the last week of September, first week of October. Councilman Griffith is going to be out for the council meeting in October. And I definitely would, you know, want you to be a part of that. All right, and you have anything?
With that, is this something that we may, I'm not sure how long you'll be out, Councilman, but it'd be something that we may have the advertisement of the position and maybe have the interviews in November, or are you completely out?
No, he's just
I'm-
out
I'm
for
on-
that date.
Just the 1 week. It's 1 week. I'll be
Okay.
back that Friday afternoon.
FYI, I'm going to be traveling some September, October. So I told Mayor Joplin, so I mean, I may not be able to do the interviews, just definitely.
Well, you just didn't know the dates at the time we talked to you. You knew that, yeah, that. So we'll look at the dates. Guess that's something that we can. look
Yeah,
at later,
that's what I
look
was
the
looking
dates.
at. I didn't want to set a date
Right.
and we don't have a quorum. Or someone's not here. So if there's a date that's in mind to maybe doing
The interviews.
the interview, that would definitely help us out on one, the advertisement of it, and two, getting it set up for the interview by itself.
I'll be here, Madam Mayor.
Once you get your travel schedule, if you can let me know, and we'll work around your travel schedule and we'll work around your week off. All right.
I would also just like to add and this might just be a consideration for transparency, openness, communication, that when we do post this officially, that when we communicate that the process is also clearly outlined and the dates are lined up.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know so just.
With a note to check your spam folder if you don't get a response back by a certain time.
We will make sure that if I don't receive information back, a call will be made. It won't just be a dependent upon email.
I appreciate that so much. I got 3 phone calls that morning.
Thank you for that. Yeah, if we're finished with the meeting, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, what, you have something else? Okay. Second? You have a second to adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor of adjourning? This is the first.
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
Delay in adjourning. Okay, you're gonna be here.
I know.
Okay, unanimous adjournment. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for being here so early, everyone. I appreciate it.